All right, folks, welcome to the What's Right show. Sam Mirejovsky here, your host. Glad to be here, as always, behind the What's Right microphone. So, top 5 things happening right now in the world, stories to follow that are important. This one I have to mention just because Elon Musk is a character. And he's gotten himself into a spat with one of the most successful CEOs in Europe. This guy, his name's Michael O'Leary, and he runs Ryanair. And the two are fighting over Starlink Wi-Fi on his 600-plus airplanes. I asked the guy who runs Ryanair, it's a discount carrier, but he basically told Elon Musk that he has no idea about anything related to airplane operations. That basically the amount of drag that the antenna at the top of the plane adds to the airplane could cost the airline hundreds of millions of dollars annually. I don't know if those numbers are right. Anyway, the two are going at it. It's turned actually into a pretty fun thing because both companies, Elon Musk's businesses, including Starlink and Ryanair, are doing better and are selling more product because of it. Go figure. Now, in number 4, and I just got to tell you this is a huge thing for a swath of the country. There's a storm coming. Winter Storm Fern. There's 1,500 miles of blistering cold. Temperatures are going to drop 20 to 40 degrees below average. And 3 inches of ice are going to cover some areas. We're not going to have power. You're not going to have heat. There will be a loss of life. And of course, if you plan on traveling during this, it's going to be a major problem. Even up in Reno, well, they're saying Reno actually here in Nevada is saying fairly stable conditions, but they're thinking there's going to be some pattern change. Anyway, something to watch. This story here, this is a blink if you missed it. Number 3. We have not heard from some time about Trump's ballroom. Remember the East Wing ballroom? What did I tell you back in October? The East Wing ballroom. Now CNN is admitting that the project is about the presidential bunker complex that's under the East Wing and needs to be updated, needs to be rebuilt. The original bunker dates back to 1941, right after Pearl Harbor. White House officials built a bunker for FDR to keep him safe going into World War II. And it's been notoriously basically weak and not, the fear is that the presidential bunker, the PEOC is what it's called, is not sufficiently secure in the event of nuclear war. So you got this info 3 months ago. I'd like to point that out. By the way, here is me talking exactly about this. And this was back in October of 2025, October 23rd to be precise. Trump has said a number of times that the building's going to be bomb-proof. He's consulted with the military. These little offhand comments. I'm starting to be convinced that this was something that had been recommended by the military brass and the U.S. Secret Service for some time and simply, sloughed off by previous administrations who feared they'd get blowback for it. Everybody knows where the White House is. Everybody can pinpoint more or less within a few feet where the president sleeps. It's a target, right? So there's something going on. Yep, there's something going on. Sure thing. Now CNN admitting I was correct. Okay, number 3 top news stories to watch today. Greenland. Trump just announced a deal. He says a deal has been reached on Greenland. I don't know. We'll see. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "We have formed the framework of a future deal. And in fact, not just about Greenland, but around the entire Arctic region. Quote, based on this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that were scheduled to go into effect on February 1. Additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. This is the missile defense shield, presumably. Trump very concerned about missiles flying over the Arctic. So there it is. And so it's, look, I mean, so making some progress there as predicted. Number two. Number one, and this is the top story of what is going on right now. I know you saw Trump is in Davos, Switzerland. And he and his team are taking a sledgehammer to globalism, literally at the temple of globalism. Now, I mean by this the World Economic Forum. That is what's going on in Davos. Trump almost didn't make it. I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday, late in the night, Trump's plane, Air Force One, was forced to return back to Joint Base Andrews. Apparently, some kind of electrical problem, and immediately the internet went abuzz with all sorts of wild rumors. And a bunch of trans disinformation accounts and bots on the internet began openly celebrating that Trump had probably died. Of course, that didn't work out quite well because Trump emerged from the plane and transferred to a separate aircraft. This is the aircraft usually operates as Air Force Two. Of course, when the president is on it, it becomes Air Force One, the smaller 757 aircraft, not the 747. So he went on a smaller plane, made it to Davos, much to the chagrin of the global elites, who then proceeded to get an absolute lashing by Trump. Now, I've said this, and I think most of you can appreciate the fact that what the elites have devised for us over the past 30 years, for a majority of my life, and certainly for the entirety of my adult life, hasn't worked out well. The New World Order, put together by the EU, put together here actually at Davos, by the World Economic Forum, people like Klaus Schwab and other odious characters in Europe who have sought to diminish American might and power and insert themselves basically with very little money or chits in the game, in the play, because they don't really have a whole lot to offer, and have not just attempted to screw America over, but have actually succeeded in trashing their own countries and their own continent and the entirety of the West. These are the people that came up with mass migration. These are the people who opened the doors to the West from places like Syria and allowed their countries to be overrun by a dangerous fifth column of people intent on overrunning the West. These are the people that believe that all jobs, industrial jobs, ought to be shipped overseas. These are the people who got rich as blue-collar, lower middle-class people got poorer and poorer. And so to watch them writhe, to watch them squeal and shout and be beside themselves as Trump and other members of the Trump administration are over there giving him a tongue lashing, is just fantastic. Now, did you see, one of my favorite things of this all is that Gavin Newsom fancies himself, the governor of California, as a bit of a shadow president. Somebody somewhere in Gavin's inner circle has said, listen, Governor, if you want to be president, start acting like the president. So he took this literally, and he went to Davos, and is acting, is cosplaying sort of as the president of the United States. He's there meeting with all the leaders that Trump is whacking left and right and assuring them behind the scenes, and this is a truly scandalous thing, assuring them all that if and when he becomes the leader of the United States, he's going to undo everything that Trump is doing. The offensiveness of Gavin Newsom knows no limits. He's there literally undermining the president in real time. And so Trump, and this is great. You probably heard about this, but this is great. Trump bans him from the U.S. pavilion, and so Gavin Newsom's speech gets canceled actually, and he just got sent packing. Because Trump and his people, the White House control. They control who goes into the U.S. pavilion. So, well, this guy's a hanger-on. This guy's a Carney. Like, don't let him in. Well, Mark Carney he gave a speech too. Speaking of Carney, he's the Prime Minister of Canada. We'll get to that in a minute. I was pissed off, Robbie, quite honestly, because Carney brought up Czechoslovakia, brought up the Czech Republic in the most awkward of ways. Okay, I'll get to that all. Don't worry, buckle up. We've got a hell of a show. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Radio Network. I'll be right back.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. And friends, this hour of the program is always brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. Don't go at your injury case on your own. Don't try to handle it yourself. Every day, every week, people call me and they say, Sam, you were right. I tried. I thought it was going to be straightforward, and they tried to screw me. So I know what to do now. I'm calling. So please help me fix this. And we do. We fix this all the time at Sam and Ash Injury Law. samandashlaw.com. Get a protector and an advocate on your side. That's what your lawyers are. It doesn't cost you any money up front. And spread the word about that too. Let your friends and family know to not waste their time and their stress handling this when there's help so easily and readily available. Sam and Ash Injury Law. Offices in Nevada and California. Phone number 800-304-2000. 1-800-304-2000. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. I mentioned in our top 5 stories here the storm that is headed straight at a swath of the country. Sentinel Energy Vice President and Principal Matt Randolph, this is an energy guy, right? It's not a Weather Channel person or a environmentalist freak, posted yesterday about this storm. I just want to share this with you, understand how disruptive this is going to be nationally. There are going to be financial, human, and other implications of this as the days go on. Have a listen to what this guy says.
This is going to be one of those storms you probably remember for much of your life. Basically, more than the eastern half of the United States is going to be below freezing. Most of that below zero. They're calling for foot and a half of snow all through here, all the way to the mid-Atlantic, and 3 inches of ice in this pink band right here. 3 inches of ice is unbelievably catastrophic. That is worse than what Texas experienced in 2021. There's going to be loss of life. Anywhere there's 3 inches of ice, there's no power. There's not going to be a power line that's not on the ground when there's 3 inches of ice. And emergency services aren't going to be able to reach you because there's 3 inches of ice on the road. That's what's going to happen if this forecast is correct. The grid's going to fail. Refineries are going to shut down. Water systems are going to shut down. Could knock out a couple of LNG terminals if it goes far enough south on the Gulf Coast. This is going to be a disaster if this forecast is even close to accurate.
Now, there's going to be financial repercussions. Those repercussions, of course, will all be blamed on Donald Trump and Greenland and other things, right? It's never... like yesterday, right? The bond market took a dump. And everybody got out there, and I turned on the evening news, and everywhere nonstop, everybody kept saying Donald Trump and Greenland and these tariffs that he's threatening and blah, 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 blah. And when you look under the hood, you realize that Japan announced a new policy where they're going to cut taxes, and the revenue wasn't going to be made up anywhere, and they have a huge amount of debt, including or a whole debt with loaned out to other countries, including us. And basically, in that moment, where the markets figured out that Japan was maybe going to have a hard time bringing in revenue, and would have to sell some of this paper out there, these positions, to finance a budget deficit, everybody freaked out and affected the markets in a huge way. This is one of the many things. It's the lack of, and it's willful, okay, but the lack of fiscal knowledge and market knowledge by most people in the media, and especially by the Democratic Party, is just astonishing. I think this is what made me laugh so hard when Gavin Newsom shows up in Davos acting as if he's president, cosplaying as the president, if you will, and then decides to take aim at Scott Bessent. If you miss this, Scott Bessent is an absolutely brilliant Treasury Secretary, and he is a guy who has been one of the leading hedge fund investors in the country, and he understands bond markets as well. He's been in bonds, and he's literally no moss under his feet. Active Wall Street guy. So he gets criticized at Davos by little governor of California running around, and his comeback, folks, was absolutely. Literally would love to report a murder. This is what Bessent said about this.
Governor Newsom, who strikes me as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, may be the only Californian who knows less about economics than Kamala Harris. He's here this week with his billionaire sugar daddy, Alex Soros, and the Davos is the perfect place for a man who, when everyone else was on lockdown, when he was having people arrested for going to church, he was having $1,000 a night meals at the French Laundry, and I'm sure the California people won't forget that. My message to Governor Newsom is the Trump administration is coming to California. We are going to crack down on waste, fraud, and abuse.
It's so good. This is, by the way, it's something delightful. Scott Bessent is gay. Something great about a serious gay man talking about Newsom looking like Sparkle Beach Ken. I don't know. Something very humorous there, and I'm loving it. I'm here for all of it. Bessent is a killer. He went on, by the way, to add what I think was a substantive criticism of Newsom, and it needed to be said. What exactly is he touting? What record of success is Newsom here to represent?
I was told he was asked to give a speech on his signature policies, but he's not speaking because what have his economic policies brought? Outward migration from California, a gigantic budget deficit, the largest homeless population in America, and the poor folks in the Palisades who had their homes burned down. He is here hobnobbing with the global elite while his California citizens are still homeless. Shame on him. He is too smug, too self-absorbed, and too economically illiterate to know anything.
Folks, I'm telling you, this is epic. Nothing short of epic. And I remember in Trump's first administration, a lot of the burden of messaging really was borne by Trump himself because everybody else was kind of vanilla, starting with Pence. So, Trump's frustration, he had to do everything himself. He had to deliver all the jabs himself. He felt like it was all on him. And Trump is, you'll notice, more calm and more measured and less incendiary now than he was in his first term. And it's in part due to the fact that he has picked people who he is confident can message on his behalf and deliver the kind of rebukes when necessary that the Democrats deserve. Don't go anywhere, folks. More on this and other topics here on the What's Right Media Network. I'm telling you, folks, it's absolutely epic. Trump and his team going to the World Economic Forum and looking the globalists dead in the eye and telling them to their faces what an utter and complete failure their policies have been. Absolutely beautiful to watch. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday. And just a quick aside, right? Starting on the 16th of February, we're going to go to a 1-hour show that will air here on KXNT locally at 6 p.m. And then, of course, you can get the podcast wherever you get your podcast, and that will be available first thing in the morning. So I will record the show and we'll put it up fairly immediately. You can get it on the podcast or you can listen to it at the end of the day in case you've missed it. All right. Lutnick is another guy who came to this forum slinging some truths. He went on stage, Howard Lutnick. This was absolutely fantastic. I got a clip of this. I want to, he's our commerce secretary. And he talks about the failure that globalization has brought and the shift now that's underway to an America First agenda. They're all crying about it. Here's what Lutnick said.
Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies.
There it is. And these words stung. They stung everybody in the room. And they look, get into this. It's obvious to me that this whole thing, it's obvious that this whole thing has always been a joke. Like you put jobs overseas. Who exactly is a stakeholder in the economy? The forgotten men and women of industrial America, the kind of towns, the likes of which J.D. Vance came from, they are hollowed out, literally burned to the ground financially, right? All to, have cheap labor? Then there's net zero. You know what net zero is? Eventually in 2030, we're committed to be net zero on emissions. And so Europe raced to get rid of basically all energy production. Lutnick, at one point in the speech, goes, why would Europe agree to net zero when they don't make a single battery? The Chinese are laughing. right? You want to talk about Paris Accords? They're laughing at the West, going, "Oh my gosh, they're literally cutting off their legs." And we're going to we have mechanical legs that we can sell them. What are the numbers, Robbie? Remind me again the numbers, financial numbers of what Europe has bought in oil from Putin and gas, and then what they have spent on the war. I mean, the numbers are astonishing. They're about even. There it is, right? Since the Russian invasion 4 years ago, in February, it's going to be 4 years. Europe has given $264 billion in assistance to Ukraine. And Europe has purchased $264 billion in Russian energy. Europe is literally financing the war against who they claim is their biggest nemesis. And you almost have to think, which part of this are the Europeans delusional about? Are they delusional about Putin being a threat to the continent? Well, I don't know. Could be, maybe a little bit exaggerated. I don't trust Putin one bit, and I think he's a dangerous guy, and on some level certainly would be interested in taking back the Baltic republics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. I could see that happening. So if he is that dangerous, why pay him money? But they're doing it because they've closed down, because of their idiotic policies, have closed down energy production. Like Germany keeps shutting down nuclear power plants. Then they don't have enough power. And so they, and they sit there and they say, well, America's not going to be our partner in European defense, so we're going to go at it alone. And I'm thinking to myself, do you even buy your own, bowl? I mean, I think some of these people do, but it's just lie after lie. It's all so horribly inconsistent, and Trump's calling them out on it. No sovereignty, no borders, no industry. They want to be dependent. And I'm convinced that these World Economic Forum types just want it all to burn down so they can sit at the top of the pile and take advantage of the chaos and throw their billions around and turn those billions into hundreds of billions or trillions, not caring at all that they have destructed Western civilization in the process. And what, by the way, if you look domestically, what really has the Democratic Party become? If the top Democrat candidate for president, leading contender for the nomination, is Gavin Newsom, who is there in a full-throated defense of this defunct, now on its way out world order, the Democratic Party doesn't have a message that really resonates, does it? Can't all just get by on Trump hate. By the way, Newsom gave some sort of deranged rant. I'm going to pass this along here because I got to play this. Listen, this is the guy who wants to be president. He's so deeply unserious.
Newsom, do you have a message for Europeans who are concerned about the messages from the White House around Greenland this week?
Yeah, it's time to buck up. It's time to get serious and stop being complicit. It's time to stand tall and firm, have a backbone. I can't take this complicity. People rolling over. I should have brought a bunch of knee pads for all the world leaders. I mean, this guy's playing folks for fools, and it's embarrassing.
Europeans think this is diplomacy and this will ultimately
this is
work.
Diplomacy with Donald Trump? He's a T-Rex. You mate with him or he devours you. One or the other.
And Europe's being
people need to stand. No, the Europeans could be if they continue down this path and process. They need to stand tall, stand firm, stand united.
Newsom just wants Europe to, is literally there to undermine Trump's efforts to build American supremacy. We have a Democrat who wants to be president working overtime jet setting around the world to undermine the Trump administration so that he can score a cheap political win. It's so obvious what he's doing. But behind it, right, is the worry. I mean, what a difference an election can make. I mean, gosh forbid, we cannot be asleep on our laurels come 2028, because the risk of a Gavin Newsom is significant. This guy could end up becoming president. People, out there some of them are pretty dumb. And he's a slick guy. And, I run every week I run into somebody where I assume everybody understands, even Democrats, that Gavin Newsom is deeply and serious. And I'm surprised time and again that people actually like him. And, and Trump's going to fix a lot of stuff. Things will be objectively better, and people will won't even realize how bad it was coming out of the Biden administration and into the second Trump administration. They'll just completely forget this. Now, Trump himself gave a great speech. This, I can tell you, I want to cover some of it when we come back. I love that Trump gives absolute zero you-know-whats about what these people think of him and what they think of America. His sole goal is to protect America and her interests, and by extension, each and every one of us. Now, it's an opportunity to transform our standing in the world. And don't buy into the nonsense, right? Don't buy into this, that Trump is diminishing us on the world stage. We have become, again, the 800-pound gorilla, and they're all laughing and snickering and this and that, but behind the scenes, they're bending to his will. It's unbelievable. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Back in a moment. Yeah, you thought I was going to forget. No, I've got the clip of Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau's replacement here, giving a most ridiculous analogy when you consider the state of Canada and the way it's going. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Welcome to the What's Right Show. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. sam@whatsrightshow.com. I apologize for not getting that to you sooner. sam@whatsrightshow.com. There you go, Robbie. I am making up for lost time with 3 mentions of the address. Here's Mark Carney earlier today at the World Economic Forum. He spoke before Trump. Trump's sort of the keynote speaker. And despite the delays, by the way, caused by the electrical issue or whatever it was going on with Air Force One, Trump had to come back to D.C. and get on a different plane. Trump still arrived, I think, more or less on time. I think 7 minutes later than he was supposed to. And he goes in and delivers a great speech. We'll get to that in a minute. Here's what Carney says. Just such a, oh my gosh, this guy.
In 1978, the Czech dissident Václav Havel, later president, wrote an essay called The Power of the Powerless. And in it, he asked a simple question: how did the communist system sustain itself? And his answer began with a greengrocer. Every morning, this shopkeeper places a sign in his window: "Workers of the world unite." He doesn't believe it. No one does. But he places the sign anyway to avoid trouble, to signal compliance, to get along. Havel called this living within a lie. The system's power comes not from its truth, but from everyone's willingness to perform as if it were true.
But he goes on then to criticize Trump with this. By the way, Václav Havel was a great philosopher, a writer, playwright, and a prominent dissident who led a movement, a protest movement against the communist regime in my parents' country. And his prominence helped him later become the nation's first free and democratically elected president since the communists took over in 1948. And But this criticism here, this is the World Economic Forum and the globalists to a nutshell. It's actually a self-own. The propaganda that nobody believes is, I mean, with a few people believe it, but everybody understands it's illogical, right? You cut off, for example, net zero. You cut off all your energy production domestically in Europe. It's what they're doing. Close the coal plants, close nuclear power plants. Everybody knows the power has to come from somewhere. So they say, I guess we'll be dependent on Russia. And then, of course, getting themselves into a predicament where now they are paying, what was it? 262 billion for energy since the invasion. And paying virtually the same amount to fund the war in Ukraine. It's unbelievable. It's all a lie. All of it. Open borders. Like whoever believed that importing millions and millions of people from the third world who have a political system / religion that is fundamentally incompatible with the West thought that would be a good idea. It's completely illogical, right? And yet they did. So Trump comes in after the speech. He was on one. Trump responded to Carney's speech saying this.
We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
It's right. There's some noise right now today about that because Carney went to China, made all these deals with China, that this is going to be a savior for Canada. It's not going to be a savior. There's another big business that is packing up from Canada, from the province of Ontario, and moving down to Florida. Companies are leaving behind these crazy places like Canada and like the UK. Well, big story, another big story, Rolls-Royce jet engine division. It's a completely separate company from the car manufacturer, but they have the same logo and the same trademark. The company that makes turbofan engines for commercial planes is going to be relocating to America. That was a big announcement from the UK. 40,000 jobs. And again, globalization? No, we're going to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. Is it going to fix itself overnight? No. But every inflow of jobs that comes in is a little bit better of conditions for American workers and will guarantee our long-term independence as an economy. And by the way, those engines will sell around the world. But the domestic market is here so massive, right, that they need the American market more than they need China, more than they need every other country put together in the world. So that was a great moment. And also Trump came out in defense of our very special culture. I loved this.
The explosion of prosperity and conclusion and progress that built the West did not come from our tax codes. It ultimately came from our very special culture. This is the precious inheritance that America and Europe have in common. We share it. We share it, but we have to keep it strong. We have to become stronger, more successful, and more prosperous than ever. We have to defend that culture and rediscover the spirit that lifted the West from the depths of the Dark Ages to the pinnacle of human achievement. We live in a incredible, changing period. It's an unbelievable time, but we have to take advantage of the time that we're in.
And that's exactly right. Now, at the World Economic Forum, the emphasis is on the world. It's on the globe. It's not on national sovereignty. It's not what can the Germans do for the Germans or what can the Americans do for the Americans. It's what are we going to do together as a world? And the answer, the short answer is these people have been busy selling out their countries and the people in them for the better part of 30 years. And Trump's calling them out on it. Now, I'm going to move closer to home here because what's going on in Minnesota, I want to get to this here when we come back. Some important updates. Of course, the DOJ on the move. So I'll get to all this when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. Did I mention how cold it was in Florida when I went this weekend? Robbie, it was freezing. I mean, it was in the 40s at one point during the day, 30s freezing at night. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone with what is left of my voice. Some of you may notice last couple days of me struggling through as my usually robust and sonorous voice under under the strain of a common cold that I picked up somewhere while in the frozen tundra of Florida. Normally, when I'm there in January, it's quite nice. It's going to be 80 degrees in Orlando this weekend. And I think it was like 75 the weekend before. And then I show up and it immediately the whole thing turns into an igloo. So go figure. But it reminds me of something that I want to bring it up again and again and again. These freezes in Florida are a known thing, right? It happens. And it's extremely damaging to the citrus crops. And it's called the Arctic frost. And they deal with this down in Florida. It can wipe out financially farms for the year, right? These orchards. You and I can never forget that the operation to get Trump in Florida to seize, perform the raid at Mar-a-Lago, to seize the documents that Trump had to set him up the way that they did, putting the jackets on them, classified all over it. Take him out of the running that they codenamed, the Biden Department of Justice codenamed that operation Arctic Frost. Because what they were going to do is come down to Florida and go after, well, not the oranges per se, but the orange man down in Florida and take him out, wipe him out of existence, politically speaking. Actually, they really wanted to put him in jail for the rest of his life. That's what they wanted. And we just have to always keep that in the back of our minds as we contemplate what to do this administration. Now, I am not as vocal as some on our side, critical of Pam Bondi and of the Department of Justice. I understand that these cases move slowly, and I've addressed this in a multitude of ways here on the program. Now, I'm very concerned about what I'm seeing in Minnesota, and it's bigger. Yesterday I talked a lot about the church service that was interrupted, and but I want to make clear, and this is very important, that there are constant assaults on individuals who are perceived, and maybe not even with ICE, but perceived to be part of ICE. There are assaults on individuals who are perceived to be conservative or somehow allied with Trump. The civil rights of ordinary Americans, of Minnesotans, are under attack. And I'm seeing some developments right now as we sit here on Wednesday and looking at this, I'm seeing some developments of National Guard troops and other military assets readying for mobilization. And I am, I'm going to say this with all love and affection for the president and for this administration. If they do not deal with this lawlessness decisively, all is lost. Everything is gone. Let me ask you a question. I'll put it this way. What would you like to see happen? I mean, if you're looking at these videos the way I am of people being pulled out of their cars, okay, and beaten up, literally getting beaten up. They're going for this is attempt murder, right? I mean, this is bad stuff. Police not doing anything, What do you want to see? Because I'll tell you, just speaking for me, I'm not the least bit bothered that the media narrative and the left-wing narrative about Renee Good, the woman who drove her car into the agent, got shot and killed. I'm not the least bit bothered about that the narrative that they're pushing. I want to see more of that. Like I want to see boots on the ground, National Guard, their Insurrection Act, and I literally want to federalize the police, everything, the whole 9 yards. This is a state that has to be liberated. These aren't street protest skirmishes. What was one of the big news items today? Black Lives Matter admitted that they were behind the church attack. And it was an attack. They didn't go in there and chant and bang their pots and pans at the back of the church, or even go up to the altar, wherever it was in the front, and declare. They went person to person, got into kids' faces and abused them and scared the living daylights out of them. These were assaults. They touched them in some cases. It was absolutely unacceptable. And again, these are professional agitator organizers. Antifa's involved, BLM is involved. And they're getting help from the government. They're getting help from Tim Walz and Jacob Fry. By the way, I had one of you emailed me, reached out on X. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, and said, Sam, I think it's Fry, not Frey. You're probably right. I mispronounce everything. You have to forgive me. It's my ESL ear. I just get it all wrong. So but reach out if you ever hear me mispronouncing something. Robbie tries to correct me as much as possible, but I think in some cases I've convinced him that these names are actually pronounced differently. It's Tim Walz and Jacob Fry. Fry is the mayor of Minneapolis. But they are allowing it to happen because they want it to happen, because they want to do anything possible to stop the Trump administration. And they think that if they've got more conflict and if they are able to goad Trump, this is their thinking, goad Trump into a massive response, that it will backfire on the administration. And this is kind of why I ask you what you think about this. Because if you agree with me that you want to see law and order and the police respected and private property respected, and obviously individuals' health and safety respected, how many of us out there feel the same way? Now, we're not the ones screaming, right? We're not the ones that are front and center, agitating, so we don't get as much attention. But I just think that there are a lot of Americans right now quietly sitting at home watching this and they want, maybe they can't even verbalize it, but they want Trump to come in and decisively restore law and order. Now, I can tell you the Department of Justice is on the ground. I can tell you that Pam Bondi flew to Minnesota. I can tell you that Harmeet Dillon, who is the lead civil rights attorney for the Department of Justice, is working on this overtime. I can tell you that there's things happening. There's a grand jury proceeding, right? Keith Ellison, Tim Walz, Jacob Fry. I mean, they are, and the case is not going to be built overnight. And so here's where I put on the reality of law and the reality of federal prosecutions is they take time to properly put together. And if you rush in and you do it too quickly, you risk, damaging your chances of success. You're going into a hostile territory, even in federal court, right? These are all judges that are going to be hostile to the administration. So you've got to have this thing buttoned up. But I don't want to see people getting hurt. I'm just imagining that this be my, family getting assaulted on their way home from school or from church. I mean, just unbelievable. And the people that sympathize with this, the people that are okay with this, are really despicable. Imagine being okay with violence because you don't like the guy in office, you don't like what he's doing. I just can think of no point in the 4 years that Biden wasn't president I wished ill on him, violence on him, or people that supported him and put us in that predicament, voted for the clown, right? So their side is the violent side. Their side is the side that is not pro-democracy like they always said. If they respected democracy, they'd respect the outcome of the election, of the 2024 election, excuse me. It's not about democracy. It's about their way. It's not about free speech either, is it? Because there's a lot of speech they don't like. And they will use violence to get you to stop speaking. It's food for thought. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Back in a moment.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Sam Mirejovsky here, host of the What's Right show, back behind the What's Right microphone, friends. Good to be here with you as always. By the way, there was a moment on Abby Phillips' show that Scott Jennings sparring with a guy I've never heard of. An exact example of how the left wants to police what you think and what you say. And it's just not working anymore. This guy's name is Cameron Kasky. And he's sorry, this was on Monday. Okay. Okay. Kasky is he's an anti-gun guy. Okay. He's co-founded March for Our Lives with David Hogg, who's that insufferable anti-gun advocate guy. Okay. So this panel was hosted actually by John Berman. Okay, here's what happened. I got my little mixed up here. This is the exchange, absolutely perfectly handled by by Jennings, Scott Jennings, perfectly said.
I recognize you haven't reviewed all the material
anymore.
And you have.
The percentage.
Who are you to tell me what I can and can't? I've never met you, brother. Listen, I can say whatever I want. They're illegal aliens, and that's what the law calls them, illegal aliens. That's what I'm going to call them.
Don't tell me what words I can't use. And that's what they do, by the way. Even in a, safe and friendly setting like a panel. That's friendly. Friendly is a long thing, but generally collegial setting of being in a studio with people, even if they disagree with you, you can be respectful. They want to wag their fingers and say, Sam, you can't say that. You can't do that. Now, Tuesday, Abby Phillip came back and got out and said that these ICE raids have been controversial. See, they try to constantly frame this as Trump is triggering the crisis. The people are being violent on the street and are costing innocent individuals because Trump is enforcing immigration law. It's the most absurd thing on the planet. And remember, I mentioned this now a week and a half ago. Remember Darvo. Remember that they will deny the problem exists, and then by the time they get to the end of it, they will reverse the role of victim and aggressor. So actually, the people that are getting victimized, that are getting assaulted and beaten up, it's their fault for voting for Trump and supporting Trump, who is going out there and inflaming the situation. Look at Abby Phillip. This is just...
Look, ICE raids, controversial. Always have been, always will be.
Not really.
I think the parts...
When Obama was doing it, wasn't controversial.
Certainly
you guys did right along.
Yes, I did.
Now, that's Ben Ferguson pushing back, who's the talk show host. You know, a lot of people don't know this. And you might learn something new. You know Doug Homan, okay? Border czar, right? Do you know that under the Obama administration, Homan served as the associate director of ICE enforcement and removal operations? And apparently he did well enough that Obama awarded him the Presidential Rank Award in 2015. Tom Homan got a highest level of recognition from Obama. And there's a photo of a giant gold medal being put around Tom Homan's neck by none other than the illustrious Barack Hussein Obama. Now, it's all in the same. If Trump does it, it's bad, no matter what it is. And when Obama did it, I mean, it doesn't matter, you know, okay. You know, Homan oversaw over 900,000 removals of individuals, and that consisted of over 500,000 convicted criminals. And he was commended by a Democrat. Because enforcing our nation's laws really shouldn't be a political, you know, hot potato. If Congress, okay, if you want to solve the problem politically, if you think it's a political problem, like Abby Phillip seems to think, and you think that the enforcement actions are going too far, well, it's simple. Change the law. But they won't. They won't do that. They can't do it. So that's the issue. And I, you know, to me, this whole thing is wild. By the way, the guy who went up and started to, you know, really berate and assault individual church members held a press conference. This was yesterday, but of course, all that happened at the church in St. Paul on Sunday. His name is William Scott Kelly. This is this POS. All right, here's what he said. He sounds a little, honestly, he sounds a little bit nervous of prosecution, not going to lie.
I mean, what we're seeing around this country is they're using their political influence to attack people that disagree with them. They're going to come at me with charges, and I'm not scared of that. There's no base for these charges. I did not block them from, you know, their service. They welcomed us in. They never asked us to leave. The police never came in and removed us. So we didn't stop their service. In fact, people were still praying the entire time. The music was still playing the entire time. So, you know, Pam Bondi, you want to come and arrest me? You want to come and give me charges? So be it. And for all the people giving me death threats, threatening my life, kill me. Go ahead, kill me. Because you know what? As Fred Hampton said, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution.
I told you, folks, I mentioned this last year, that 2025 was the beginning of the American Communist Revolution. You all think I'm kidding. Gotta listen to me from time to time. I see things that a lot of people don't. And to reiterate, I'm not saying that the revolution is going to be successful. I'm saying it needs to be put down before it is. And you do it by enforcing law and order. You have to take away the incentive of the mobs to get their way through mob rule. And you have to guide things back to the democratic process. You don't like something? vote. And by the way, you've got to make these elections clean. You have to make them clean. You know, Trump today announced, this is another huge story, announced that there will be prosecutions soon for the janky 2020 election, if I can call it that. There will be prosecutions for people who monkeyed with that election and for the fraud, the election fraud that happened. So things are moving along. We'll see how it all comes together, but certainly a lot of stuff happening, right? But this is the language. These are revolutionaries. These are protesters. These are people that are willing to go out there and lay their lives down to take this country over with violence. Mobilize the National Guard now. Stat before it's too late. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. The What's Right Show will be back in a moment. Making radio great again. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. If you get into an accident, don't do it alone. It's not a DIY project. It really isn't. And I talk to every day. I talk to someone who went at it alone. It sucked up a lot of their time, hours and hours and hours of going back and forth with claims adjusters, going through everything, sending paperwork, responding to requests, and at the end of it, they're still upside down thousands of dollars. And for something they didn't cause. Don't have that happen to you. Don't end up getting screwed after you've been in an accident. Call Sam and Ash Injury Law. Hire a lawyer that will help you. No money up front, doesn't cost you anything out of pocket. And then, quick phone call turns over the entire stress of what you're handling to Sam and Ash. It's that easy. Sam and Ash Injury Law. If you've been in a crash, you've been in an accident, you've been injured, any kind of case, you call Sam and Ash Injury Law. Offices in Nevada and California, 800-304-2000, 1-800-304-2000, samandashlaw.com, because you deserve what's right. Okay, things are heating up on the Minnesota fraud front. This is another kind of facet to DOJ investigations that are coming in. Remember, the congressional hearings are also underway. Congress, as the appropriator and overseer, has a right, in fact, a duty to, investigate in cases where federal funds are misused. So they're holding hearings here. And Nick Shirley, the man who is responsible for breaking the story, the guy who went around with his crew, his video camera, and all to the little learning centers, leering centers, if you will, and to the daycare facilities, and went door to door, and it goes in and says, "Oh, where are the kids? It says adult daycare. Where are the adults? Where's anybody?" Went out there week after, nobody, not one person be found. Then looks through the records, public records, and millions of dollars going to this place, hundreds of thousands going to the other, and doesn't seem to be anything going on. So that's what blew this issue out into the open. And he's getting asked by Kevin Kiley, I believe is his name, Republican from California, member of Congress, on these fraud investigations and what's going on. And Shirley says what I've been telling you all along. Nick's like, yeah, forget it. I mean, Minnesota's one thing. California, the scale of fraud in California is going to be far worse.
Fraud in California might be worse than the fraud in Minnesota.
What makes you say that?
Well, $24 billion went missing for homelessness. They've been trying to build this train for years, yet there's hardly anything to prove for that. Fires.
Yeah, those are good points. So you look at let's run through a couple of those. Because I mentioned the areas where we have confirmed fraud, but then you also have these areas where you have so much spending, and then we look at what results from that spending, and there's nothing. So $24 billion in homelessness, and yet the homeless population went up, and a state audit found that they couldn't even figure out where the money went or what the outcomes linked to that spending war. Is that something that is kind of a red flag for you?
Yeah, it's a major red flag, and you don't even have to be smart to be able to know that that's a red flag. I mean, it's so obvious, and that's what we saw in Minnesota, is how complicit the government has been in enabling this fraud to happen. Quality Learning Center had over 90 violations, yet they continue to give that daycare $1.9 million.
Let me tell you, you know the number that I keep hearing? That when you consider the federal budget, and you think about the deficit that we have, the enormous deficit that we have, that really our deficit is primarily caused by fraud. The number I am hearing, smart people, not exaggerators, but smart people who are actually admitting that their eyes have been opened on this, even though they are not naive. The figure I'm hearing is $1 trillion. And here's an interesting food for thought. And I think I heard Cernovich talk about this. Mike Cernovich, I have heard, imagine this. What if all this fraud was cut, today to tomorrow? I think you and I would agree. I mean, that has to happen. Do you know that if all of the fraud, if it's the number is $1 trillion annually, if it's all cut one day to the next, that it would crash the economy? I mean, no, think about it functionally, right? Think about all of that money is flowing into, into consumption. A lot of it's flowing into consumption, right? No, these are not actual viable businesses, but the money is in the economy. The people that are, defrauding the government are going out and spending money on cars and home improvement and other consumable goods that are, I mean, it's not like we're cutting 100 billion or, I mean, even that would be a significant sum. It's not like we're talking about millions of dollars or even billions, right? $1 trillion that's going out in the, I mean, it would absolutely be devastating. And the other thing to remember, it's Republicans are in on this too. And we as, principled conservatives need to be aware that every single person, whether it's on their side or ours, needs to burn for this. Now, I'm convinced, of course, there's a lot more Democrats doing this than Republicans, but it's for me, there's no political litmus test. If you're in on this, you're toast. And I'll throw one more thing out there, because I think that the financial fraud and the election fraud go hand in hand. And what I mean is the same people that are, have been caught now, I think there's not a lot of dispute to it. They've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And it's really just a matter of now going through the, through the ones and zeros and looking at the data and financial transactions. Fraud is very easy to prove, actually, at the end of the day, because it's all accounting. It's all in the numbers, right? And you can trace it. So now just the hard work of doing that is going to have to happen. But if you're talking about, in a state like Minnesota, you're talking about billions of dollars, $9 billion in just Minnesota, not a big state population wise. And then in California, it could be, 60 billion. I don't know. It could be a huge number, maybe even bigger. You start adding it all up, right? Boom, 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 one after another. What would you do to protect that gravy train? What risks would you take as a politician who is benefiting, who has family members, who have NGOs, who are basically doing nothing but receiving, individually millions of dollars and living high on the hog, and it could all go away? I mean, you could just be left with nothing. It's very difficult. I'm telling you this, it's very difficult to have a millionaire lifestyle and have to imagine it all going down to nothing. And my take on this is that these are people who would be willing to do just about anything to retain that, to hold on to that. And that's why, I mean, look, this is why you'll see, listen, why the Virginia Democrats, the minute they got to power, what's the first thing that they did this week? I talked about this yesterday. Bam. Oh, they're no hand counts for ballots. No hand recounts for ballots in the elections. It's the first thing that they do. They talk about democracy. They talk about transparency. They talk about freedom of speech. They talk about all this stuff. Mark Carney even has the audacity to bring up Václav Havel in his stupid speech at Davos yesterday and say, that bring up the constant lying of communism and have it somehow reflect on Trump, when these are the people that lie. These are all empty platitudes. And Trump gets in trouble in the media. Trump gets attacked in the media for doing what? Trump's the one who ran on the promise of enforcing the border, and people elected him to do it, and somehow now it's his fault that the temperature's going up because he's fulfilling a campaign promise. Where's the lie? So, I'm convinced that and it's this kind of word that I don't always love it, but the word normies, people who sort of consume news and 5 minutes a day, maybe, sort of third hand. And there are people who absolutely do not believe that an election can be compromised, can be stolen in America. And I'm convinced it can be. And I'm convinced that the proof of it's coming. And I'm convinced that it's going to be eye-opening, and it's going to shake people to their core. And it's not just about, I'm going to win the race. This isn't high school, okay? You're not running for, high school treasurer, for Pete's sake. It's not a student council election. There are billions of dollars on the line. You want to talk about motive? Every time there's a crime, how many times you got to watch Columbo? What's the motive? You got to get to the motive. Well, here's the motive. And that's why I'm telling you, the financial fraud and the election fraud go hand in hand. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network, the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. All right, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian behind the What's Right microphone. So some stats here that I think are interesting about the media. So they're just did a study. The Media Research Center did a study of ICE border enforcement media coverage. 93% negative. January 7th, this month, through January 17th. Okay, so that was the first, not even the first half, a portion, about 10 days of this month. ABC, CBS, and NBC's evening newscasts all hammered ICE. More than 90% negative, 91% negative on ABC. And NBC and ABC, 96% negative on CBS. Only 1.6%, and this is fascinating, of the Minneapolis-related coverage made any mention of crimes committed by illegal aliens. They just didn't mention it. They didn't bring it up. And CBS never, not once, admitted that Nicole Good hit the agent with her car moments before he fired on her. And ABC and NBC only did so once each. Now, the Department of Homeland Security, and I presume they've got the statistics to back this up, say 70% of the illegal aliens arrested by the Trump administration have had criminal charges or prior convictions. And, it's absolutely maddening. And the media has actually not disputed that number. I think that's the maddening part about it. They are not disputing the number. They are saying simply, Well, they're choosing to simply ignore it and agitate. The Washington Times reported that 100,000 illegal immigrants have taken the Department of Homeland Security's self-deportation bonus. Most of these payments were $1,000, and then they had a $3,000 bonus payment last month. So about $100 million has been paid out in bonuses to compel illegal immigrants to leave. This is a great program. It costs $17,000 roughly to arrest, detain, and fly out the average illegal. So this is a big savings. People voted for this, is my point. And that's why the terrorists working Minnesota, St. Paul, and other blue cities across the country are so intent going after Trump voters and intimidating Trump voters. Because they want to scare us into compliance. They want to scare us into giving up our constitutional right to vote and to select our government. They want to strike fear in our hearts. This is why I'm calling them terrorists, literally, why they deserve that moniker. So, I say this, the fraud, if we can tackle the fraud, if we can tackle it, well, it's a winning issue for Republicans. First of all, it's the right thing to do. And it helps tackle the largest threat, right, which is the budget deficit. That's the most important thing right now. I mean, it's an existential threat to our country. Second to, I think, the spread of radical Islamists, to our borders and to the Western world. That's definitely true. But I think it also serves to dismantle the jet fuel that is propelling the Democratic Party forward. Actually, all the bad political actors. Take away their funding. Put them all into bankruptcy. They'll have to sell their mansions and their fancy townhomes and their luxury cars. Have to go earn it like the rest of us the right way, the honest way. They're not going to be able to flood the Democratic Party and act blue with mass donations using the money that they're stealing from taxpayers. Support for Democrats will hollow out. California and New York absolutely are going to get a stern looking at, and this is why Trump keeps saying, hey, Gavin Newsom, watch yourself. I'm sending the Department of Justice into the state of California to clean things up. Wired magazine wrote this just today. Minnesota is the beginning. California and New York are next. POTUS loves Minnesota and the people. It's a state where he received historic Republican support. He's long called out Tim Walz for his incompetence in leadership. This from a senior White House official who was quoted in the magazine. The fraud is so blatant and widespread that it's a good place to start, but it's only the beginning. California and New York are next. It's a warm-up. That's what this is. So I'm telling you. And another thing I'll say is voter ID. I heard a great idea. I think this was from Elon Musk, that the Republicans in the Senate should just do away with the filibuster to get voter ID passed. Done. Federal voter ID. Every federal election, every congressional, election, the House and the Senate, presidential election, bam. So it's every time there's an election, you gotta prove ID. And you can go back and audit an election. So you got to show proof that the person showed ID and trace every single voter. I mean, if we get this done, think of the makeup of Congress will change radically. Trust me. I bet you there would be a 20-seat swing to Republicans if you do just that one thing. It's astonishing. If you pretend you like democracy, you're all about voter ID. One person, one vote. I'm a believer in that, but not this nonsense that seems to be all the rage, and it seems to always put the most suspicious of characters on in these offices. And again, like, you know, Trump won in 2024, won in spite of the fraud. It's wild to think what a landslide it could have been without all the funny votes. All right, I know. We are going to absolutely stay on top of this. By the way, if you got any questions, comments, concerns, email me, sam@whatsrightshow.com, sam@whatsrightshow.com. I think in the next 24 hours, we're going to see some stuff pop off with Newsom. He is not happy. Newsom is not happy that he got booted, basically, from the American Pavilion where all the action is. He was ready to be a little spoil sport. Stand in the corner, giving the Greta Thunberg scowl as Trump was speaking. But Trump was calling him out. Newsom was in the audience. He had his arms folded, and he was all grumpy. And he called the speech boring. Well, that's the problem. I mean, when he doesn't understand it, it's pretty boring. It's like it's like the Peanuts. It's Charlie Brown, and the adults are speaking. It's whoa. That's probably what Gavin Newsom hears. Just a little whoa. Okay, gotta run. That's the music. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. What's Right Show will be back. Hopefully my voice is better tomorrow, folks. Thanks for being patient with me today. See you mañana.